I was a child of television, so to me, the world was television. The world was a screen, not like it is today, where it is everywhere, even on our phones, of course. But at the time, I thought that maybe this is a good direction to take poetry, because poetry was seeming to be very dry, and it didn't have the kind of excitement that I was looking for. So as soon as I recorded that first series of poetry readings, I realized that I wanted to make a video myself, but from a poet's perspective. And one year I organized a series of poetry readings, and I documented these readings on video. And I realized that I didn't have much to do. Very much like this, I had a camera set up, and I could zoom in and zoom out, because the poet was never going to leave the frame. They were just interested in reading their text from their books. And at the time, video art was becoming very important to artists to document their performances, document their works. And I thought that we should take more advantage of this medium than we had before. I produced a video poem, I think it was in 2008. It's called Beware of Dog. Now, beware of dog is a sign that we see very often on doors, on fences. And one day, just the way it appeared, those three words, I thought, this is a good title for a video poem. So already I had this title inside me that I carried around with me for a long time. Before I realized what would I do with this particular title. So it began with a title. Sometimes, as I was telling my friend Hubert Seletsky last night, one of my early video poems, I had gone to St. Helens Island, and I saw 3 sailboats on the river, and I framed them with my video camera. I framed them in such a way that it looked like a postcard. And it was so beautiful. It was like a perfect postcard. And I said, maybe I'll be able to write on top of this postcard some words that, with the combination of this postcard image, I would be able to create a poetic experience for the viewer, depending on what kind of words I would be superimposing over that image. It depends on what you find. And what you find, for me, sometimes takes time to digest and to realize what you can do with that. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it's totally immediate. I know exactly what I want to do, but sometimes you have those images in your computer, in your camera, and you hold on to it for weeks and months, and you don't know why it's there until one day it all comes together, that it's waiting for some words, if it's an image, and if you have some words, then it's waiting for the image to arrive. And once that image arrives, and you make that connection, and you feel that this is a justified decision, then it comes together, and hopefully, once you start working with it, it will become exactly what you want. The image should be the context of the poem, of the words. I just said a poem, but it doesn't have to be a previously published poem that you read in a book and you want to take every word out of that and open that up to the public in a way that they had not encountered that poem. In other words, it's always the image, I'm beginning to realize, that gives you the context through which you are to look at that poem. I don't really respect every single word in a poem. I think that if there's one line or one stanza or some combination of the words that I would like to use, I would go ahead and use that. So immediately, if the poem is perfect, in the sense that I don't want to touch any of the words and modify it in any way, edit it or anything like that, then the context, the visual context that I will bring to such a poem will be so important that the words will come out differently in that context than we would encounter it on the page. In these short films, which are video poems, poetry films sometimes called, there is a time limit that creates a whole new genre compared to a feature film. The best way to explain that is Maya Durain, very famous American experimental filmmaker, encouraged us to see poetry in film as a vertical moment in an experience. And the way she explained that is that in filmmaking, you usually tell a story. There is a narrative flow to a feature film. You have to establish who is that character and what is their relationship to another character. What is their relationship to the plot? You have to create some need of the character. All these narrative questions that are important to filmmakers, even though they say that it's poetry that they are after, in a feature film, because of the length, basically because of the length of feature films, it's a necessity to create a kind of film that will bring the audience into the film, sympathize with the characters, follow them through their adventures. In a poetry film, you take that one moment, that may be 3 minutes of a moment, and it doesn't matter who they are, where they came from, what their relationship is to the story, or how it will end, or what is the result of that. It is that moment, that vertical moment, she claimed, and that I believe is true, that sets apart the poetry film from the cinema of poetry. I just watched Nostalgia by Tarkovsky, and I was watching it for this particular question. And in that film, we are watching that there are some small moments, that what I call vertical moments, in the film, which are not contributing to the narrative, but they are giving us a certain kind of atmosphere to experience what we are watching. At the end of that film, and I kept watching for this vertical moment because I believe that this vertical moment exists in every film. That's why the surrealists, when they went to a film, they would walk in the middle of the film, and because they didn't want to know about who are these characters and what are they trying to do. As soon as they discovered the plot of the film, they would walk out of the movie theater. So I'm watching Nostalgia, and I'm looking for this vertical moment, and I can't find enough of a vertical moment to say that everything before and everything after doesn't matter, because the filmmaker executed that one particular vertical moment in a very perfect, pure way. But at the end of the film, so I was very disappointed that it had moments here and there, but not enough for me. But at the end of the film, there's one character who is kind of like the indirect character, not the protagonist, not the hero, but someone that the hero visits from time to time. And he's a very strange character. And at the end of the film, this character is suddenly seen in the center of the city, on top of a scaffolding, and he is reciting this incredible prophetic poem to his audience, which is not a crowd. You expect the shot to be, on him, because he's gesticulating and he's very emotionally involved in what he is saying in a very poetic way to his audience, and you expect the camera to give you the reverse shot of a crowd of people that are surrounding him, but it's not a crowd. There's this staircase, these stairs that are leading up to another building, and there are 30, 40 people are standing on the stair, very still, listening to him, but they're not together as a crowd. They're all separate, standing almost like Tarkovsky said, no, 3 steps up. Okay, right there. You a little bit to the left, stand there. It seemed like everyone was put into a very specific, kind of a poetic juxtaposition with this poem that he was reciting. It didn't end there. He came down from the scaffold. He poured gasoline over himself at the end of the poem. He climbed down from the scaffolding. He was lit up. He used a lighter and he self-immolated himself. And he was crawling away on the ground as this scene ended. And I said, my God, there is our vertical moment. It doesn't matter what came before. Of course, there were some hints that he wasn't a perfectly normal, average person, human being, but that wasn't important, because once we saw him on a scaffolding and the information that he was giving us through his voice, the words that he was delivering to his audience were almost biblical. He wanted to warn the future. He wanted to warn the public that they should understand that he has had a vision. And when he explains his vision to the people in this very emotional way, you didn't need to know who he was or what was going to follow or what the people would do with the information that now they had from this crazy man who burned himself to death. There are other little moments in that vertical moment. There's another character who is rolling around on the ground as he is pouring gasoline over himself. So there are some very interesting incongruities within that moment, but it is a vertical moment that the film, it's not needed to be anything else but what it is. And if we took that out of the film and put a title on it at the beginning and some credits at the end, it would make a perfect poetry film. I'm very interested in poets working with video, as opposed to filmmakers who happen to find a good poem that they like in a book of poetry. I would like to see this genre develop from a poet's dream of where poetry is going to go in the next century. Because filmmakers are around and they are very powerful because of their images, and we often think of poets as working in silence, you know, solitary at their desks or in cafes, writing very quietly to themselves. I would like to encourage poets to pick up the camera and to become friendly with images, so that they don't have to write images into their poems. They can gather the images from their cameras. It will be very helpful to poets to give us all these images that we no longer have to describe in great detail. So let us focus on words, the ambiguities in words, the charge of words, how words are charged with feeling and with intellectual knowledge that can be given to our audiences. Let us not take up time with our words that can be easily reproduced by the visual image.